I've been traveling all day and I've got to travel again tomorrow, so I'm going to run off to bed. But not before I answer Gordon Miller, who writes fascinating paragraphs. Says, I follow your posts avidly. I'm so pleased people do. But on this occasion, I wondered if you could help me. I spent an unpleasant hour or so with some friends I've known for many years, dyed in the wool Tories. We all have them. But no matter what I said about the Labour government, they kept saying that they'd achieved nothing. I said they had achieved quite a lot: minimum wage increase, working terms and conditions improvements. But I was staggered with some of their claims. They said that Starmer and Reeves had ignored impact statements from the OBR and IFS on the curbing of winter fuel payments last year, and that between 4,000 and 5,000 pensioners died as a result. I've looked for hours on government websites and tried Tory backing newspapers, but cannot find any evidence to support their claims. Surely the plethora of Tory newspapers would have held their feet to the fire, and surely this would have been manna from heaven for the Tory leader at PM Questions. Do you know if there's any truth in these claims? I've hit a wall in my limited research. Well, I'm afraid my research is slightly limited as well. I'll give you as clear an answer as I can. The claim about winter fuel payments and the 4 to 5,000 pensioner death, there's no evidence, as far as I can see, that Labour ignored an OBR or an IFS impact statement or on curbing winter fuel payments that forecast 4 to 5,000 deaths. The OBR doesn't evaluate specific policy health impacts like this. It models overall fiscal projections, not individual welfare payment effects on mortality. The IFS doesn't publish distributional analysis, but has not produced any paper saying Labour's adjustments to winter fuel payments killed thousands. There's no official or serious media reporting of 4 to 5,000 pensioner deaths linked to Labour cuts to winter fuel payments. The biggest change to winter fuel payment eligibility in the last 12 months was to remove it from wealthier pensioners, a policy the government defended as means-tested and fiscally prudent. It's true, however, that excess winter deaths remain high in the UK, usually between 20,000 and 40,000 a year, depending on the winter, but attributing thousands directly to that one Labour policy is false and unsubstantiated. If it were true, it would have been an open goal at PMQs, as you say, and all over the Daily Mail, the Telegraph, the Express, and conservative social media. So you can confidently say, I found no evidence from the OBR, the IFS, or any newspaper to support that claim. It appears to be false. It is false. What Labour has actually achieved in a year, I think it's raised the national minimum wage to 11.44 an hour in April 2025, the largest ever cash increase. It's maintained tight fiscal rules, stabilising the debt and GDP ratio forecast, I think at the cost of developing our economy. It's agreed the UK-France cooperation on nuclear deterrence, which I think is the big plus at the end of this year, and missile systems to bolster defence. It's committed to a new EU-UK reset deal covering youth mobility, border queues, trade smoothing, and limited returns agreement on migration. I think the agreement on migration is the least interesting detail of that, and it's only got a year to run. It's banned exploitative 0 hours contracts, with the exception of for genuine flexibility. It's strengthened basic employment rights, one-day entitlement to sick pay, parental leave protections. It began legislating for a new single worker status to reduce legal loopholes in the gig economy. It repealed elements of the Conservative anti-strike legislation that were blocking union ballots, but it needs to do more to tighten up the still abusive power of the unions, as we see with Unite's attack on Angela Rayner. That should never have occurred. In housing and planning, it's launched planning reform with new housing targets restored in England, allowing more local flexibility to meet demand. It started measures to unlock stalled developments with infrastructure funding and planned fast tracking. It's released brownfield land and issued guidance supporting denser development in urban centres. None of that is particularly headline grabbing, but it's there. In education, it's launched a Skills England to coordinate local training offers. It's begun to roll out expanded childcare places funded through existing commitments. It's continued recruitment incentives for teachers in shortage subjects, though I think not terribly successfully. In the NHS, it's announced and funded NHS staff recruitment to get 92,000 more staff by 2030. Well, there's a lot of staff waiting, a lot of nurses waiting to be recruited, and yet there's a block on who can be recruited, which seems absurd. It's agreed new pay deals with many NHS staff groups after the 2024 strikes, but it needs to look at reducing the bureaucracy and increasing the number of people who are actually on the front line and delivering the services. It's begun dental contract reform to improve the NHS. As for the Conservatives' legacy and failures, this is easy to explain. Debt rose from around 80% to over 100% of GDP during the Conservative years with no growth dividend. Inflation spiked to over 11% in 2022, partly worsened by the Truss mini-budget fiasco. Interest rates quadrupled, raising mortgage costs. Public services underfunded, with record NHS waiting lists, 7 million in England, housing supply failing to meet demand over a decade, net migration that hit levels, record levels, despite repeated promises to cut it, and the Brexit deal, which has left trade barriers unresolved and Northern Ireland arrangements largely unsettled. Labour are not perfect, but they have raised the minimum wage, they have restored workers' rights, planned more housing, stabilised our EU relationship, while the Conservatives have left a legacy of high debt, high taxes, crumbling public services, botched Brexit delivery. But against all of that, the issues of the farmers, the farmers' inheritance tax, and the ideological strike on independent schools, the raising of VAT there, which has led to students with special needs being excluded from schools or schools closing. And you don't improve something by destroying something else. You improve something, and then you find you don't need that something else. And the same thing is true of farming. If you improve the support for farmers, then maybe you can fiddle around with inheritance tax, but you improve first. And the Labour Party seems hell-bent on destruction to grab its headlines, and in both those cases, it didn't pay attention to advice. It didn't seek advice, and that's it. That seems to be a major error. I think there are other errors. I think the benefits of the Labour government are modest. I think the chaos of the Conservative government is enormous. The last Conservative government was basically repairing the damage done by Liz Truss in 1 month, a little month. I sound like Hamlet for a second, but just 1 month, Liz Truss did more damage, I think, than any other Prime Minister in history. Just a little month. And it took all of Rishi Sunak's skill. And don't be in any doubt, Rishi Sunak has considerable skill. He was one of the best chancellors, I think, of the last 30 years, and in the little period of time that he had to demonstrate what it was like to be a good leader of the opposition, he gave one of the best speeches in the last 30 years. So the people who are making these claims and saying thousands of pensioners died, you have to ask calmly, show me your source. Which OBR or IFS document, which news outlet? Because I can't find any credible evidence, and they won't be able to either.